Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to everyone who is joining our webinar in the webinar series for LIS students, brought to you by IFLAS Sectional Education and Training and IFLAS Division C. My name is Susanne Listrettan. I work for the Austrian Library Association, and I'm currently the chair of the Sectional Education and Training. And it is a pleasure for me to co-moderate this session together with my colleague, Marina Enkeva. I would like to start this session by thanking my colleagues, Marina Enkeva, Sofia Adayeye, and Alena Katina for the excellent work in organizing this webinar and for making today's session possible. Our session today will be on Open for All, Copyright, Creative Commons, and Student Voices. So the webinar focuses on copyright and Creative Commons licensing, but from a student's perspective. We have invited student speakers to share their experiences, ideas, and reflections on how copyright and open licensing affects their studies, research, and overall academic work. So the goal of today's webinar is to raise awareness about Creative Commons licensing and also open access practices, and to highlight how those frameworks can empower students to share their work, to amplify the student voices, and also to participate in a more open and inclusive informational environment. Before we start the webinar, a few organizational notes. This webinar is being recorded. This also includes the chat. We will post a video of this webinar on our YouTube channel, the channel of the section on education and training, and also on IFLA Division C website. We will also post about the webinar on our social media channels, including Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. Please note that all microphones have been muted for the event. And if you do have questions or comments for our speakers, please type them into the Q&A box and we will address them at the end of the session. Finally, we are especially pleased that the webinar takes place today on the 23rd of April, which is the World Book and Copyright Day, which makes it even more meaningful that we can have this webinar on this date. I would like to now give a brief overview on our program today. So after my welcome, we will have Jamal Al-Salmi. He is with the IFLA Committee on Copyright and Other Legal Matters, and he will give us some greeting words via YouTube. It was pre-recorded. And then we will hear our keynote by Fatima Abdul Dayan. She will talk about championing student voices in an open world, the role of copyright and Creative Commons. We will then have 4 student presentations. The first one from Deniz Sit from Turkey. She's currently a PhD student at the Ankara University, and she will present on enhancing museum visibility in Turkey, open licenses, and student participation in the digital age. It will be then followed by the presentation of Brian C. Gonzalez from the Philippines. He is a third-year Bachelor of Library and Information Science student. And he will present on Creative Commons and student voices, sharing an academic world to open knowledge, to an open knowledge era. This presentation will be followed by a presentation by Canadian students. We will have 4 student presenters. It's Camille Simkin, Chloe Tierstein, Michelle Pettis, and Emily Wilson from the University of Toronto. And they will present on Copyright for All, reimagining copyright education through play. And we will then have our closing student presentation by Esther Yato and Aziz Adeyoye on championing student voices in an open world, the role of copyright and Creative Commons. So we have a lot of very interesting, also very different presentations planned for you today. And we will now start with the video that I will share in a minute. The link to the video is also shared in the chat. So if you cannot hear the audio, we'll ask you to open the link. It is a YouTube video, and to have a look at the video via YouTube. So I realized that some colleagues might not have been able to hear any audio. That's why we share the YouTube link via the chat, and we will invite you um, to hear to the video after the webinar. Um, we would now like to introduce our keynote speaker, Fatima Jibril Abdul Dayan. And her keynote presentation will be on championing student voices in an open world, the role of copyright and Creative Commons.
Susan, I will share Fatima's presentation because she has some technical issues and sent the presentation to me.
Perfect.
So now I will do this. Can you see the presentation? Okay, Fatima, please let me know how to go through the slides. Fatima, please, the floor is yours. I don't see Fatima. Probably something happened with her connection because she is not in the list of speakers. Shall we wait a little bit?
She just said she's on the backstage. I will go backstage and try to assist.
Okay.
Okay, can anyone hear me now?
Yes, it's fine, Fatima. Please just tell me when I need to move further with the slides. You can start.
Marina, unfortunately, this has not worked. I will try to assist further, but I would suggest to have the first student speaker presentation and then.
Okay, because I see Fatima now in the list.
Okay.
She's here, but I don't know if she hears us. Fatima, do you hear us? Is everything fine? Probably a technical issue. Then let's follow the suggestion of Susan and continue with the first student speaker. And then as soon as Fatima is able to start with her presentation.
Can anyone hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay. All right, thank you very much. My name is Fatima Jibril Abdul Dayan. I'm sorry for the technical glitches at the backstage. Today we'll be discussing championing student voices in an open world, the role of copyright and Creative Commons. Next slide. So I would like to begin this keynote presentation with an understanding of what an open world is. We live in an open world, where knowledge grows when it is shared with little or no restrictions. Knowledge is now available in different formats and they are being held on different platforms, different medium. Now, Open World here is a system of knowledge, learning, and participation that is built on openness, accessibility, and collaboration. And the Open World slogan is grounded in movements such as open access, open education, and open science. Next slide. Now, in this emerging open world, student voices is a critical part because their voices are increasingly becoming very important to be heard as learning is being moved from passive to active. So, students' voices in an open world refers to the meaningful inclusion, expression, and influence of our students' perspective within an educational ecosystem. So this helps to now see students beyond just sitting in the classroom and listening to lecturers. Students are now evolving to be co-creators. And also, the open world allows challenges to dominant narratives in knowledge systems where students are being seen as passive, but to active learners. And another thing why student voices matter is because it supports more inclusive curriculum design. What we have currently is education is being seen as a collaborative process and a shared responsibility that is not left for just lecturers alone. It is now seen as a collaborative process between our students and lecturers as facilitators. Next slide. Now, in an open world, there is this issue of copyright. These are critical questions that comes up when you talk of openness. Copyright helps to promote progress by securing time-limited exclusive rights for creators of content. Now, copyright basically is a legal and ethical framework that was designed to encourage creativity and innovation and to ensure recognition and economic reward for creators and also protect original works. Next slide. But there are tensions with copyrights now that we have an open world. In academic context, specifically for students, the presence of copyrights is restricting access to scholarly works. And this is because there is limited reuse for teaching and learning, especially when it comes to materials that are copyrighted. And this is now creating a kind of barrier to knowledge dissemination. And then this barrier is heavily felt in the global south, especially in developing countries where they have to rely on some of these copyrighted materials to move forward and to develop their nation. There's also the problem of fear of plagiarism and lack of awareness of rights. Next slide. So to ease off this tension, we have what is known as the Creative Commons licensing. Now, Creative Commons does not erode copyright data on materials that students can use or can use. Creative Commons licenses simply gives another legal layer of access that defines how creators, how users or reusers can distribute, share, or build upon works that are copyrighted. So this means that materials that are available in public does not necessarily mean that copyrights will be ceded or will no longer be protected. Creative Commons simply had an extra layer and for clearly defines said materials can be reused, can be shared and then build upon. Now, in Creative Commons licenses, there are different types, and these are summarized here. You have the CC BY, that's the Creative Commons by, that's attribution, the CC BY share alike, and the CC BY non-commercial. I'm going to explain that briefly. Next slide, please. The first one is the CC BY. Now, what this license allows others to distribute, remix, adapt, and build upon the work, even commercially, as long as they give appropriate credit to the original creator. Now, this ensures that works that are available in public domain, students can have access to this work. They can reuse, they can adapt, they can remix, provided the appropriate credit is given to original creator. In addition, students can also add to the pool of knowledge that is available by invoking this copyright license, which is the CC BY. Next slide. The second type of Creative Commons license is the CC BY SA. Now, this kind of license allows others to remix, adapt, and build upon works, even for commercial purposes, but provided that they credit the author and license the new creation under identical terms. It means that whatever you are using, you are allowed to use it in whatever format, but then any derivative coming out of it must be shared under the same license terms. So it means you can use, but whatever you're sharing, you should also allow others to reuse. Next slide. The third one is the CC BY non-derivative. Now, this license allows redistribution, commercial and non-commercial, as long as the work is passed along unchanged and in whole. So this means that if you share your work or you want to interact with a work that carries this kind of license, you are not allowed to modify. Next slide. Now, the next Creative Commons license is the CC BY non-commercial share alike. This license allows others to remix, adapt, and build upon the work non-commercially, as long as they credit the creator and license their new creator under the same terms. Next slide, please. Now, this last one is non-commercial, no derivative. This is actually the most restrictive license. It allows others to download and share works with credit to the creator, but you are not allowed to change it, neither are you allowed to use it commercially. And then the last one is the CC0. Next slide. This one ensures that whatever is online and this kind of license is invoked on that work, you are allowed to, the creator has waived all rights and placed the work in the public domain. It means you can use the work freely without attribution or restriction. Next slide. So you can see the benefits, next slide, of all these Creative Commons licenses. It further helps to ensure that students are not caged in their efforts to contribute or co-create knowledge. And from these licenses, from the beginning, we can see the one that is most open, the one that is least restrictive. And it also helps to further encourage collaboration, support open education, expand access to knowledge. Very importantly, it allows legal sharing of content with no fear of plagiarism or infringing on author or creators' copyright. And it also maintains author attribution. Next slide. So what does this mean for students? These are examples of practical pathways for amplifying student voices in an open world. Now that we understand that copyrighted works are not infringed upon because there is an extra layer of Creative Commons licenses which can be invoked on the work, in amplifying student voices, we need to engage them to allow them understand the importance why they should use Creative Commons licensed materials and in turn adopt open licenses on their works. It also helps students to understand their role and their rights to be able to publish in open access platforms. For example, on institutional repositories, students can upload their content on their institutional repository and invoke appropriate licenses to allow other people to understand their perspective. Students can also contribute to what is known as the OER Commons, okay, where you have materials in different formats that are created by students and some are co-created with their lecturers. We also have sharing of creative projects in different formats. So students now have the ability to contribute and then their voices are being heard without any fear of restriction or being tied up behind the paywall, because now there are mechanisms that ensures that their voices are being heard. And then there's an example of the University of British Columbia OER initiative, and I would encourage us to look at it. It's just an example of how students and lecturers are co-creating open educational resources. So this is just a pointer to some other presentations that would come up, and I'm sure some of them will explain some of these areas in details, so that we can now see that it is very important that the student voices must be heard, and they need to be transitioned from passive learners to active learners and to co-creators in a way that their voices can be heard in an open world that exists right now. Next slide. Thank you very much. I appreciate this opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you very much for this very interesting presentation, explaining Creative Commons licensing. And I especially liked your closing on how student voices should be heard and should become active participants. Thank you. We would now like to move on to our first student presentation. And it will be brought to us by Deniz Sit from Turkey. And she will talk about enhancing museum visibility in Turkey, open licenses, and student participation in digital heritage. Deniz, the floor is yours.
Susan, I don't see Dennis in the list of
Thank you. I will have a look at the backstage quickly.
Okay.
Yeah, sorry. Unless now it's okay.
Yes.
Okay. Sorry. I'll be happy to part of this webinar. My name is Deniz Çit. I am a PhD student in the Department of Information and Records Management at Ankara University in Turkey. I have an academic background in both of information records management and archaeology. In addition, I actively contribute as a volunteer to the Digital Cultural Heritage Network. I would also like to mention that this study has been prepared under the supervision of Dr. Nurdan Atalan Çeyresmez and Professor Nevzat Özel. In my presentation, I will first explain what digital heritage, then I will introduce the Digital Cultural Heritage Network and explain how we use Creative Commons licenses in our work. Sorry. According to UNESCO's definition, digital heritage can be born digital, meaning originally created in a digital environment, or it can be digitized, meaning covered from physical materials to a digital format. Data produced in many different types, such as images, text, video, and audio. It must be preserved to prevent its loss, made available to the public to be accessible and passed to future generations. In Turkey, many cultural heritage organizations and individuals are digitizing their collections, converting physical materials into digital formats. However, creating and storing these digital records often leads to problems later with accessing the information, especially for research and public use. This happens because the digital resources are not created using accepted information and documentation management standards. The data is unstructured, and metadata which necessary for describing and finding records is often missing. Also, standardized preservation practices for different file types are not followed, increasing the risk of data loss. As a result, the digital records are not easily fundable, and because they are not shared thanks to open access, they cannot be widely used by researchers and the general public. Therefore, it is crucial not only to create digital cultural heritage, but also to manage, structure, and make it openly accessible. Prepare information and documentation management is essential for preserving these digital records and ensuring they are available for future generations. We are the Digital Cultural Heritage Network, a group of volunteers and experts from different fields working together to make Turkey's cultural heritage visible and protected in digital. Our aim is to raise awareness and make sure that this heritage is available for everyone, which we achieve through collaboration and sharing. We work with both national and international organizations accomplish these aims. There are different platforms that make cultural heritage visible and accessible in the digital environment. As a community, we prefer using Wikimedia projects. This is because Wikimedia is a platform that offers information as open access, is accessible from anywhere in the world, and allows for storing various types of data. Within Wikimedia, there are different projects based on topics. For example, Wikipedia, which is used often, is suitable for textual content, while Wikicommons is suitable for presenting visual content. There are many other Wikimedia projects like this. Wikimedia is a platform of the Wikimedia Foundation. It is independent and does not have aids, and it funds projects that add data and expand the Wikimedia ecosystem. Our community applied for and received one of these grants. Our project aimed to digitize cultural heritage in the 11 provinces of southeastern Turkey affected by the February 2023 earthquakes. Turkey was a very rich culture, and the earthquake zone is southeastern Turkey is many different types of cultural heritage. After the earthquakes, there was no official information about the status of the local heritage. We organized data entry events in various cities to gather citizen science data about these sites and share it through open access. In our events, we mostly work with university students. Our aim was also to raise awareness of these fields. At the same time, we began to inform students about open access and the licenses used in open access. We visited Ankara University students during their classes and afterwards. We held online trainings. Based on this example, we understood that long-term work with students is more productive. And you can also examine the statistics here. Productive work for us. During this period, I complete my master's degree together with my professors I collaborated with. And my thesis was also on the visibility of the Turkey's museum in the digital environment. And I examined museums in Ankara, Turkey's capital, and found that Wikipedia was the platform where museum data was mostly frequently entered. There were missing data even on platforms created by the state. This is because management of museums is Turkey very diverse and it is difficult to collect them under a single roof. However, Wikipedia is advantageous because it is a platform that can be edited and updated by multiple users. After this study, we began to add Ankara Museum's data to Wikimedia project together with university students. We created museum list and students visited the museums and added their data. During the Wikimedia events, particularly when uploading photo content, declaration of the person who took the photo is required. Wikicommons detects similarities and does not accept images created by others that already exist in the internet. To upload content, we must first have a Wikimedia account and then we can log in and access the platform. After login, you can go to the upload area and upload the image you wish to use. As you can see in the slides, I upload a photograph I took myself and I'm sharing the steps with you. When you upload the photo Wikicommons, you declare that you are the creator of the image and I agree to share it under a Creative Commons license. The platform provides clear information about how your photo will be shared and how others can use it. After simply describing the photo, it will be shared through open access. In every event, we hope to raise awareness among participants about the importance of using open license for images uploaded to Wikimedia project, explaining what they mean. In this image, you can see the visuals we uploaded about Ankara's museums along with basic metadata information. As a community, we work on making cultural heritage data visible and open accessible online. In this context, we believe that visual content in particular should be shared using Creative Commons license. Awareness of licenses is not yet widespread in Turkey. To build this awareness, we use Wikimedia projects in particular ways, producing and learning together, especially with students. We have seen that such practical works are productive and have received positive feedback. We believe students can use this knowledge in the future because they learned it hands-on. While carrying out these activities, we also collaborate with the Creative Commons Turkey team because we believe that knowledge grows when shared and we share all knowledge through collaborations. We hope our work can serve as an example for others. Thank you for listening. I appreciate your time. Thanks to everyone who helped with this webinar. Thank you.
Thank you very much for this wonderful presentation and for describing how Creative Commons of museum contents works in a digital environment, and also for sharing that knowledge grows when shared. Thank you very much. I would now like to invite our next to start the presentation on Creative Commons and Student Voices sharing academic work in the open knowledge era. Brian, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Susan. Is my presentation visible?
Yes, it is.
Good day, everyone. I am Brian Gonzalez from the University of Perpetual Health System, Laguna. And before I present my presentation, I want to answer a simple question. What happens to student research after it is submitted? Most of the time, it stays in classrooms, folders, or institutional archives, and it's rarely even seen again. In today's digital and information-driven society, students are no longer just consumers of knowledge. They're also creators, producing research papers, projects, theses, and other academic work. These outputs contain valuable insights that can contribute to academic discussions. However, much of this work remains hidden and does not reach a wider audience. One major reason for this is the lack of awareness about copyright, intellectual property, and open licensing. Many students are unsure how to share their work legally while still protecting the rights. This is where Creative Commons and open access come in. In this presentation, I will discuss how these tools help students share their work responsibly and amplify their voices in the academic community. To better understand this, let us first look at the foundation, the copyright. Copyright is the legal protection given to creators over the original work. In academic settings, this includes essays, research papers, presentations, and theses. Once a work is created, the student automatically owns it. However, many students are not aware of this. Because of this lack of awareness, two common problems arise. First is the misuse of other people's work, and second is the hesitation to share their own work. Understanding copyright is important because it promotes ethical use of information, proper attribution, and respect for intellectual property. It also empowers students to take ownership of their work and decide how it can be shared. Libraries and educational institutions play an important role here by teaching copyright and information literacy. Now that we understand the copyright, the next question is, how can students share their work while still protecting their rights? This is where Creative Commons become important. Creative Commons provide licenses that allow creators to share their work under specific conditions. Unlike traditional copyright, which restricts use, Creative Commons offers a more flexible approach. Students can decide whether their work can be shared, adapted, or used commercially, while still requiring proper credit. For students, this has several benefits. It allows them to share their work legally, reach wider audience, encourage collaboration, and others can build upon their work while still respecting their authorship. In this way, students' outputs are no longer just classroom requirements. They become contributions to global knowledge. To better understand how Creative Commons works, let us briefly look at the different types of licenses. There are six main types of Creative Commons licenses. The first is the attribution or the CC BY. This allows others to use, share, and even modify the work, even for commercial purposes, as long as they give proper credit. The second license is the CC BY attribution share alike. This allows modification, but any new work must be shared under the same license. The third license is CC BY ND or attribution no derivatives. This allows for use, including commercial use, but the work cannot be changed. The fourth one is the CC BY NC or attribution non-commercial. This allows use and modification, but only for non-commercial purposes. And the fifth one is the CC BY NCSA or the attribution non-commercial share alike. This combines non-commercial use with the requirement to share new work under the same license. And lastly, the sixth license is the CC BY NCND or the attribution non-commercial derivatives. This is the most restrictive. It allows sharing but no modifications and no commercial use. These licenses give students flexibility in deciding how open they want their work to be while still protecting the rights. But sharing alone is not enough. The next question is, where does the shared work go? This leads us to open access. Open access means that research is freely available to anyone, without financial or institutional barriers. For students, this is very important. Through institutional repositories and open platforms, their work can reach a global audience, including researchers, educators, and policymakers. When research is openly accessible, it becomes a part of a larger academic conversation. It can support future studies, inspire collaboration, and contribute to knowledge development. Creative Commons work together with open access by ensuring that shared work is used ethically and properly credited. Now that research is open and accessible, how does it actually reach people? This is where the digital platforms come in. Platforms such as repositories, open access journals, digital libraries, and academic networks allow students to share their work beyond traditional boundaries. These platforms amplify student voices, they make research visible, allow students to engage in global discussions, and help them gain recognition. More importantly, they also help students develop important skills such as research, communication, collaboration, and responsible authorship. When combined with Creative Commons, these platforms support both openness and ethical sharing. However, students do not navigate this process alone. Libraries play a key role in promoting open knowledge. They act as educators by teaching copyright, open licensing, and ethical research practices. They provide workshops, trainings, and academic support. They also serve as access providers by managing institutional repositories where student research can be stored and shared. Through these efforts, libraries help increase the visibility and impact of student work. More importantly, they empower students to become responsible creators and active participants in the global knowledge community. With all this in mind, let us now bring everything together. The students today have the potential to contribute meaningfully to the knowledge globally, not just to consume it. However, this potential can only be realized if they are equipped with the right knowledge and tools. Creative Commons allows students to share their work while keeping ownership. Open access increases visibility and reach. Digital platforms amplify their voices, and libraries provide guidance and support. Together, these create an environment where knowledge is more open, inclusive, and collaborative. Ultimately, empowering students to share their work does not only benefit them, it strengthens the entire academic community. Let students research be seen, shared, and valued. Thank you.
Thank you, Brian, for this wonderful presentation, sharing the challenges of copyright for students and its impact, as well as solutions for making knowledge more open. Thank you very much. I would now like to invite our 4 speakers from Canada: Camille Simkin, Michelle Pettis, Chloe Tierstein, and Emily Wilson, to share their presentation on Copyright for All, Reimagining Copyright education through play.
Thank you. Yes. So today we'll be talking Copyright for All, reimagining copyright education through play. And together we are a group of current students and recent graduates from the University of Toronto's iSchool. Presenting today is myself, Michelle Pettis, Emily Wilson, Camille Simpkin, and Chloe Thurston sends regrets. So we'll overview a game and our process that first emerged from a course on copyright with Professor Dr. Jean Dryden, which grew beyond the class for lasting impact. Now, side credit that this was strengthened as being a cohort from the floor, where many of us were student workers and many of us working in the Scholarly Communications and Copyright Office with the University of Toronto Libraries. It was that proximity and bouncing of ideas that fueled some of this collaboration. So we noticed that copyright can sometimes be a scary subject, full of anxiety and cautions. And there was a disconnect. So copyright as an essential skill, but low engagement. Copyright was often experienced by students as high risk, overly legal and punitive, and students would disengage before developing their own confidence. Yet copyright literacy is foundational to scholarly communication work. So there was this affective barrier, like these emotional barriers, resulting in a skills gap. And in evaluating tools and games in the course revealed a lack of Canadian copyright education. So we asked, how can we make copyright education more accessible and engaging? So why does copyright need play and why a game? And you'll meet one of our versions and iterations later, our true, false, fuzzy edition. But basically, we looked at gaming because copyright can often be seen as dry, high stakes, or intimidating. But arguably, games and play can transform some of those affective barriers by grounding learning in low-risk learner environments. It's not graded, and this allows uncertainty without penalty. Gaming encourages discussion versus only right and wrong answers. And it was able to surface questions from each other in those gray areas where real copyright decisions actually happen. And there's a practice of embodied and social learning. You're bringing in a little bit of the body as you play. You're bringing in joy and maybe even a little fun. But it was shifting copyright from compliance to exploration mindset. So ultimately, we found gaming uniquely invites learners to grapple through tough concepts by embracing ambiguity, testing boundaries, making decisions together, and co-creating meaning. It's in that co-creation where we saw games positioned as scholarly communications, turning learners into co-creators, treating rules and scenarios as shared texts, modeling peer review through gameplay, the testing and the arguments, and circulating ideas through remixable formats and embracing productive ambiguity as a learning tool. But why Creative Commons and open pedagogy? So we wanted our project to reflect the same values we were teaching. So we built it up as open educational resources using Creative Commons. This was both practical and pedagogical. As an open educational resource, it allowed for reuse and adaptation, so it could reach different audiences, and different audiences could use scenarios specific to their locale or issues. A modular design allowed for remixing, whether that remix to meet the group size, but also our own growth. We have different versions and iterations too. So, but it was also about being a transparent creation process with sustained documentation and equitable access across educators and institutions. So important initially, but also solidified in the process. We championed students as creators, not just learners, and students as contributors to scholarly communications now, not just future contributors. So now let's hear about some of that process.
Great. Thank you, Michelle. Of course, every creative project has its own share of roadblocks. In this section, I'll talk about some of the major challenges we faced and how we overcame them. And it's our hope that these lessons can help other students. Our first set of challenges involved our funding, resources, and scope. While we benefited greatly from the leadership and expertise of our copyright professor, Dr. Jean Dryden, we were at the same time a team of student volunteers with no funding and no formal game development experience. However, rather than seeing these constraints as an insurmountable barrier, we used them to shape our approach and decided to build a low-cost prototype that could be used to cultivate interest and secure future funding. At the same time, our initial plans for our prototype were far too ambitious and risked stalling us altogether. We needed to scale the project back to match our skills, and this resulted in us shifting to a workshop-style game format that really capitalized on our current experience. Breaking our work down into small, realistic tasks and prioritizing an open, modular, and accessible design early on really helped us ensure that our game could continue to evolve and grow freely throughout this process. Meanwhile, sustaining our momentum was another challenge, especially alongside competing school, work, and post-graduation demands. In this case, choosing to embrace flexibility and intentionally allow people to weave in and out of the project without shame and as their capacities allowed, helped us to continuously progress despite life's inevitable side trips. Finally, we also recognized that creating the game was only our first step. We also needed to engage in outreach. By proactively exploring our local networks, communities, and supports, we were pleased to not only promote and run the game as a workshop at the University of Toronto, but also to connect with interested individuals at numerous conferences, like this one. Furthermore, by intentionally sharing our game as an open educational resource, we are actively striving to continue building these connections while supporting the ongoing growth of copyright education games within the broader library community. Okay, so I'll pass it over to our next co-presenter.
Hi, so I'm gonna just introduce everyone to the game. So we designed the game to be accessible, open-ended, and applicable. So each card has a single question or scenario on it. In small groups, students read aloud the question and discuss if the answer is true, false, fuzzy, which is like it depends, or if they just don't know. Discussion questions were built around scenarios that information students and library students will encounter in their work. An example question is, I'm a student with a part-time job as a research assistant for a professor. I write reports on my research. I own the copyright in these reports. So that's a scenario. And the question here is false, as you are an employee, so your employer owns the copyright. And again, these are all based on Canadian copyright rules. So these cards are created to be with accessible design principles in mind. The cards feature large font, simple design, bold color, and limited places. We wanted the game and its rules to be as simple as possible to limit confusion. And we also provide players with a physical, like, I'm not sure card to reassure them that it's okay to not always know the answer. The point of this game is to encourage like safe and stress-free peer learning. We didn't want anything to be too complicated or overwhelming for them. And I just wanted to reflect quickly on this process for us. It was incredibly helpful to us as students to like get together and create this. This project helped us practice our collaboration and brainstorming skills as we figured out how to transform our game, which was creating a Canadian-centric copyright education game specifically for information students, into reality. We had no budget. We had a lot of big ideas and like we were still able to go from ideation to product, and we learned about OA and open like accessible design principles along the way. And this project was something very daunting as we had so many directions we wanted to take it in. So we're very pleased that we were able to create this final product that we are very proud of. And if you scan this QR code, you could go to our game. You could also follow the short link there. And maybe we could send this link in the chat. And it goes to a permanently open access Google Drive folder with new assets being loaded with each, future iteration. And thank you. If you would like to send us an email, if you're curious to learn more, you could do so, or connect with us on LinkedIn. Thank you.
Thank you very much for this wonderful presentation. Noting that copyright literacy is important and making it fun through playing and also sharing the challenges, but also the successes in designing the game as you have has been very interesting. Thank you. So lastly, I would like to invite our final presenters, Esther Chatto and Aziz Adeoye, to present on championing student voices in an open world, the role of copyright and Creative Commons. And until she prepares, just let me quickly remind you all, you can put your questions in the Q&A box because we will have a Q&A session after the last presentation. Thank you.
Hello, good afternoon. Hello, good afternoon. Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you
Okay.
perfectly. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Good afternoon. I'm Esther Jatso, a doctoral student at the University of Ibadan, Nigeria, from the Department of Library, Archival and Information Studies. I would like to talk on Creative Commons licenses, what all students should know. This is just my discovery on one of my work, my thesis work, and personal journey, whereby I work on Creative Commons licenses perception on use of open educational resources among doctoral students. There is this particular kind of silence that greets every doctoral student when they first enter the doctoral programs. This kind of silence is not the kind of silence we have in the library, but the silence surrounding the invisible infrastructure of knowledge, the rules, the rights, the licenses, that nobody, guess what? Nobody hands us over a map. There's nobody that hands off a map, or here is how the world of copyright actually works. But that was my experience when I first joined or came into the doctoral journey, thinking copyright was a warning label that we usually found on textbooks that basically said that do not copy this, do not copy that. But however, there is this leeway that copyright has always put in place, like a copyright is a living system with graduations, exceptions, and alternatives. And that has actually generated to what we call that under the name Creative Commons. So when I finally understood this, I laid my fees, and my frustration with access barriers did not just disappear, but they transformed into something more useful. Curiosity, intentionality, and eventually the advocacy. Yet, despite that, academic world operates on the exchange of knowledge. There is this right to the art of that exchange. That is just one that restricts access in ways that affect students, particularly those at the under-resourced institutions and those studying in developing countries. The deeper the problem, however, is not just access. It is literacy, it is access, anxiety, and even when open educational resources exist, many students do not use them confidently because they actually do not want to fall victim of licensing or want to fall victim of plagiarism. And the Creative Commons licenses were not just, they were already designed to solve the access problem by creating a legal framework through which creators can actually choose to share their work openly. And that was the solution that have come to play when it comes to copyright. When I found out this through my research, through countless conversations with my fellow doctoral students, this actually allayed my fears and put me on a good stead. By and large, Creative Commons is a family of legal tools that lets creators communicate with rights that they keep and also which they give by making sure that their knowledge is shareable legally and clearly. And there are features or several types of Creative Commons licenses. And one of such licenses is by attributions, which enables wants to actually use, share, adapt, build upon creative license work, but one must actually give credits to the original creator. Same vein, we have the share alike conditions, which means that if you adapt a work licensed under this condition, your adaptation must also be shared under the same condition, the same licenses, as is a compatible licenses. So for instance, if the original creator openly shared his or her work, but by the time you are adapting such work, it must also be shared openly. Then we also have the non-commercial condition, which as that one restricts, this particular abbreviation restricts use to non-commercial purposes. We also have the one that no derivative conditions that permits sharing of the work, but does not allow adaptation or modifications. So how does all this now affect doctoral journey? This affects us. Let me just be direct here. When you first hit the paywall trying to access the journal articles, Creative Commons licenses present the alternative that some authors and publishers have actually chosen in order to make their work available without any restrictions or barriers. So this has actually bridged access to openly licensed studies, improve literature review quality, and also bridging paywall gaps. Another thing is the content, creating of content. CC BY images can go in our presentation without any individual permission. And also for publications, because believe you me, we are meant to, in this academic world, we are still expected to make publication, to publish our work or as a doctoral student. So we can choose the CC BY for our thesis as a student without any institutional access, and we can read or build upon all this work. Also, we can build a culture that students who understands these CC licenses become advocates of CC licenses, Creative Commons licenses. And we can also have to create a one-day workshop, shifted the entire course from avoidance to active users of Creative Commons. Bringing the gap, the recommendation. From my own understanding and experience, one of the most significant ways that Creative Commons has affected me was through the process of building my literatures. And also, Creative Commons has also been mandated for all postgraduate students. In conclusion, Creative Commons license is not just an abstract. It is actually the rules governing what happens when you click on that article, when you adapt that diagram, or when we actually upload our thesis to open repository. So these are what my doctoral journey have actually taught me, that knowledge should not be locked away from those who seek it earnestly. It also taught me that openness is not simply a technical setting on publishing platforms. It is a value that has to be taught, value that have to be practiced and passed on. And this is what Creative Commons movement is come to play. And my recommendation goes to both institutions. To the institution, they should integrate CC licenses and copyright literacy and into postgraduate induction programs. So this will not only be single slide in an orientation presentation, it should be a dedicated practical session that walks students through the license types, shows them how to read licenses, condition on real resources. And also to the supervisors, we can model we can play a role by modeling good licensing practices. When supervisors share reading lists, they can actively include or identify openly licensed materials. And also to the libraries and information services, they should provide develop resources specifically tailored to doctoral students that addresses Creative Commons literacy in the context of research practices. They can also design a practical guide like a decision trees for choosing the right licenses for their own publications. And to the students themselves, they should take the initiative, even in the absence of formal institutional support, to educate themselves about Creative Commons licenses. These Creative Commons license organizations maintain extensive and freely available educational resources on their own websites. These are, the knowledge should not be locked away. Openness is a value, not just a technical setting on a publishing platform. It must be taught, passed, and passed on. References. Thank you for listening.
Thank you very much for this closing presentation and sharing how copyright can sometimes be an invisible wall and how your understanding changed during your doctoral journey. And I will now hand over the moderation to Marina Inkeva for the Q&A.
Thank you very much, Susan. While our audience formulate questions to this very informative and interesting presentation, I will start by asking some questions to our presenters, starting with our keynote speaker, Dr. Abdul Dayan. Fatima, which approach do you think works better when educating students in copyright issues? A training session performed only by academic librarians, or mutual training activities of librarians and university teachers?
Thank you very much for the question. From the presentations that we've listened to so far, they have been able to share a lot of options that we have, in ensuring that we promote copyright literacy. I specifically enjoyed the game designed by one of our presenters. It was quite insightful. It's very easy to learn. It's one way to start. The other way is to libraries, for instance, should hold periodic webinars on copyright literacy, and then have information session that would be specifically tailored to discussing implications of copyright and how to adopt Creative Commons licenses. Yeah, then students as co-creators can also be encouraged to build more games, to act as drama, and to leverage all different the different formats available to promote copyright literacy using language, that they easily understand within their circle. Yeah, thank you, Sophia.
Thank you very much, Fatima. I would like now to make a note related to the presentation of Dennis and her colleagues. It was very interesting for me to find out that your digital cultural heritage network is very similar to a collaborative platform we have in Bulgaria, which is also, it involves institutions from the GLAM sector, and it's named Heritage BG, with very similar objectives. My question is related to the application of learning by doing approach in the work with the undergraduate students. Which were the most difficult topics for the students addressed by this collaborative initiative? that required special attention from the university professors and experts.
Yes, thank you. Actually, we opened the collaboration with Twitter. If we want to work with us, you contact with me or the other professors. And can you tell me again this platform? What is this name?
The Bulgarian one, or
Yeah.
Heritage BG. I can send you later more information.
Yeah. Thank you.
Okay. And with regard to the question concerning the application of this wonderful approach, learning by doing collaborative work of undergraduate students, which was the most difficult topic for them in this practical work they did?
Yeah, actually, it's difficult, of course, work with the undergraduate students, but it is difficult to actually make to work with the data with the students because students not doing nothing, and we usually talking and we prepare. You must be doing. You work with us, but it is not suitable for this. For this reason, we work with students hands-on, and we visited museums with students, and we collect data about the museums, took the photo, and in this time, it is very useful for the students use the Wiki Commons or use the digital tools and of course the Creative Commons licenses. And we can see the after this work, it is very useful and students like this process and join with work with us. And before this is very difficult process because sometimes we want to students collect the data about the museums on the internet as open access, but students not work like this. But we want to go to museum and take the photo and collect the data. It is very useful.
Thank you very much, Dennis. Very, very interesting how you manage to engage the students. And we also, we are applying very often similar approaches. This is important part of our work with students to involve them in as many practical activities as possible. My question to Brian, in his presentation, he really outlined the role of library. But yes, we all know how complex can be the topic of copyright. And sometimes in order to attract the attention of students, really serious efforts are necessary. I am addressing this question to young bachelor students like Brian. How can the academic libraries promote copyright literacy, ethical research practices, and open knowledge initiatives in a more effective way?
Can you please repeat the question?
Brian, did you ask us to repeat the question?
Yes, yes.
Okay, Brian. how can the academic libraries promote copyright literacy, ethical research practices, and open knowledge initiatives among the students in a more effective way?
Um, Academic libraries can promote copyright literacy but more effectively by combining instruction, access, and practical support. Academic libraries can also integrate copyright education into information research programs or by conducting workshops and short tutorials, provide clear and accessible guides on copyright and licensing. Librarians can also lead one-on-one consultation to help students apply the concepts of their own work. And in the Philippines, we have our National Book Week that is done in November. We librarians and students teach some students and some of the infants, kids, and in addition, libraries can promote the use of Creative Commons, support institutional repositories, and embedded copyright guidance directly into research and submission processing.
Thank you very much, Brian. And now I will address two questions to the recent graduates from Canada, Michelle, Camille, and their colleagues. First of all, I would like to ask, did you hear about the initiative copyright card game offered by colleagues from the Great Britain, Jane Secker and Chris Morrison? Because yes, approximately 8 years ago, they introduced this card game and really involved a lot of participants in workshops, in library related conferences. I'm curious because your approach is similar. And as I'm also very interested in educational games, and I have also coordinated two projects related to game-based learning for LIS students, librarians, and teachers. And for us, serious issue was how to evaluate, how to measure the effectiveness of the game. Our games were related also to literacy issues, information, media literacy. Your games is related to copyright literacy. So my additional question is, how do you measure the effectiveness of this game? And as I'm very much internationally oriented, always think of possible collaboration. I understand that in copyright there are differences between the systems, but have you thought for continuation of the project? Have you thought for international collaboration with librarians, educators, and students with regard to the further development of the game and promotion among a wider audience in more countries?
I can start to answer this one. Um, we have not heard of the card game that you mentioned, though that is really interesting. I'd love if you could send it over to us
Yes.
after. We were inspired by virtual games that we were shown in our class, on our like copyright for information professionals class. And so we originally wanted to do like another virtual game. I cannot remember where in Europe the game was made, but there was like one specifically that it was called like Copyright Heights, and it was, I'm not sure if you heard of this one before, but it was really fun and we really enjoyed that one. So we wanted to create our own version. So initially we created like storylines and characters and all that. And then we realized that it wasn't possible because of our limited budget and time. So we just like we pivoted like Michelle, who you heard speak earlier, thought about doing a murder mystery card game, and then we pivoted to just pure card game. So that's like how our thought process happened. Um, for like measuring like how like measuring like just how people are using the game and stuff. When we ran it in a workshop, it was at I believe at the end of a copyright workshop, and this game just brought people together to like play like so it's like a supplemental thing. I think the goal of this game isn't to like teach people copyright information 100%, that they will remember for the rest of their lives, but just to show that copyright is approachable and can be fun and it's not some big scary thing. So we didn't really measure like any concrete like insights or anything like that. And as for like international like adaptations, I think that's a part of why we wanted to make this game open access. So if other like countries wanted to create their own version of the game, they can, because all of our assets are online. And if you go on our link, we have like the actual games with all the all the cards with the questions on them. But we also have an Excel spreadsheet with all the questions and answers, and people could make their own versions for their own audiences. I think that we were thinking of making possible like I mentioned that like murder mystery adaptation, like if we could do some more like fun adaptations in the future. But we don't have any formal plans for international adaptations.
Thank you very much, Camille. And I have a question to Esther and her colleague. Which institutional policy do you recognize as the most appropriate in convincing teachers and students to share their knowledge and research achievements by applying open licensing? Esther, do you hear me? Esther? Okay, let's look at the chat to
Yes,
see.
please.
Okay, sorry. I
Mhm.
thought that there is a technical issue. Did you hear my question or you need to repeat it?
No, I
Okay,
couldn't hear that.
thank you. So you don't need to repeat the
This is the
question, no?
question.
So my question is, which institutional policy do you recognize as the most appropriate in convincing teachers and students to share their knowledge and research achievements by applying open licensing?
This is the question again, please.
Which
Sorry.
institutional policy do you recognize as the most appropriate in convincing teachers and students to share their knowledge and research achievements by applying open licensing?
Yes, please. Yeah, I will advise our students to share their work on the using Creative Commons licenses. Hello, can you hear me?
Yes. And how the
Okay.
institution can support them in the best possible way, according to you?
I would advise encourage students to take the initiative by sharing their works through the formal institutional support, and then also under the Creative Commons licenses. as many of these Creative Commons licenses organizations, they maintain extensive and freely available educational resources on their own, on their websites. So students can have a peer learning communities where doctoral students share knowledge about open licensing with each other, and that also can also be powerful.
Thank you very much. Thank you to all of you for for answering the questions. And I'm checking now the webinar chat for some additional questions. So I cannot see some questions. Susan, have I missed something or?
I think there is one question for our keynote in regards of on how AI affects copyright and the landscape of information in the digital world.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Fatima. We will please reply to this important question.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for the question. That conversation has been a big one because we know that AI systems they leverage content that are in the open. Most AI systems they use content that are in the open to train their models, right? And then the question now is who gives the permission for AI to use this data. And then in response to that, the Creative Commons came up with a new license terms that would regulate how AI systems are using content, because the fact that it is in the open does not mean that you're free to use it. Okay, so and that's what we call the CC signals, the Creative Commons signals. It's an ongoing conversation that tends to define clearly how artificial intelligence systems can interact with content that are in the open. But for me, as a researcher, it's my personal opinion. I feel that if the intention of the AI system is to further solve a problem, and the interest of the public behind that intention, then to openly use content. But then when it comes to commercialization, and then you're commodifying the outputs of the usage of open materials, then we need to come to an agreement, okay, or whether I will need some form of royalty or give you some kind of licensing attached to the use of my content. So that's just on a personal note. But Creative Commons is coming up with a clear guidelines on how artificial intelligence systems can use contents that are in the open. That's the CCC now. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Fatima. Susan, shall we go to summary of the session if there are no additional questions? So I will briefly summarize this really inspiring and interesting presentations that I'm very happy to read these positive opinions on the session, that it was educative and the presentation were comprehensive and informative. Thank you very much for your participation. I will briefly summarize, starting with our keynote lecturer, Dr. Abdul Dayan. In her presentation, Fatima focused on the importance of promoting open access among students and raising their awareness about Creative Commons and open licensing. In the second presentation, Denis, together with Dr. Kairi Ismes and Professor Yuzeu, combined a case study from her country about digital cultural heritage network with practical insights into Wikimedia collaboration of undergraduate students, including Creative Commons licensing, and offering in this way a clear value for understanding digital access and reuse. The third presentation given by the bachelor students from the Philippines, Brian Gonzalez, addressed important issues, students' limited awareness of copyright and open licensing, and highlights how Creative Commons licensing can empower them to share their work in a responsible way. The fourth presentation of the recent master's graduate, Camille Simkin from Canada, and her three colleagues from the Faculty of Information, offered an engaging practical approach to copyright literacy through an open access educational game. Using this initiative, the presenters are proving that the game-based approach to complex topics like copyright and Creative Commons can be a successful strategy for attracting students' attention. And the fifth presentation of the doctoral students Esther Jatu and Azes Adeoye from Nigeria, demonstrating strong first-hand experience, thoughtful engagement with the topic, and valuable personal insights into Creative Commons, copyright paywalls, and related issues from a student's perspective. In summary, we had the opportunity to hear different points of view on the importance of copyright literacy and the benefits it brings to the different players in the educational sector to have thorough knowledge how to apply in appropriate way the Creative Commons licenses in various contexts, and to share their research achievements and knowledge among a wider audience. Thank you very much for your participation. Thank you very much to my colleagues Susan, Sophia, to our keynote speaker, and the excellent students we had here representing different countries, different continents, and different levels in the LIS schools. Really, all their insights were valuable to us, as we all are in the field of LIS as educators, librarians, and we are happy that the young generation is so enthusiastic and really finds the best way to develop their knowledge, to find creative approaches to learn and share what they have achieved. And I would like to give the floor to Susan for summary and conclusion from the chair of the section on education and training. Susan, please.
Thank you, Marina. Thank you for moderating this Q&A, for all the questions and the wonderful summary. And thank you all for attending today's session on copyright, Creative Commons, and the students' voices. A special thank you to our student speakers for sharing their experience and insight, for presenting the projects. We really appreciate your time and your engagement, and those have all been high quality and very interesting presentations. I hope you found the topics as well as the discussion insightful and inspiring. We will share the recording of our webinar shortly, so you can rewatch if you like. And we look forward to welcoming you to our next webinar in the section on Education and Training webinar series for LIS students, which will be on the topic of AI in library schools. And with that, we wish you a very good day. Thank you.